Welcome to the Coherent Life. I'm Ty. We're going to kick back and talk about survival mode, coherence, and creating your life on purpose through real conversations about things like relationships, money, health, and the patterns that keep repeating in everyday life. If you already know that thoughts create reality but keep getting pulled into old patterns, stress, or overwhelm, you're in the right place. Hello, my friends. Before we get into this, I want to share something. As I've been writing and recording these episodes, I've noticed just how deeply personal they are. I'm really putting myself on blast here, sharing real moments from my life, not just concepts. And the truth is, I wouldn't be able to do this without coherence I've practiced over time. In my coaching containers, I work with clients on cultivating the safety to be seen in their lives, their relationships, their businesses, everywhere. And we do that through a combination of creating coherence in the body and choosing our thoughts on purpose. I'm using those same principles here. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the stories of my life and the lessons I've lived, learned, and turned into wisdom. I'm really glad you're here with me. In the last episode, we talked about stop, drop, create coherence, what coherence is, why it matters, and how survival mode quietly runs so many of our lives. Today, I want to talk about one of the ways survival mode shows up: codependency. Most people think codependency is about being too nice, too needy, or too attached. But codependency isn't a personality trait, it's a survival strategy. I've lost more than one good friend. Different people, same pattern, all because of codependency. At the time, I was confused. I thought I was being loving. I thought I was showing up. I thought I was doing what a good person does. But underneath all of that, I wasn't actually present. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't addressing what was really going on in my body. I felt unsafe, insecure, and unstable. And instead of addressing that, I subconsciously tried to get safety from other people. I tried to feel purposeful by over-giving. I people pleased. I showed up even when I didn't have the capacity. I thought if I could just give enough, help enough, sacrifice enough, someone else would give me the security and the safety I didn't know how to give myself. It never worked. Instead of feeling safe, secure, or purposeful, I felt anxious, insecure, and resentful. There were several moments in my life where I realized very clearly I'm abandoning myself right now. One of those times, I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting in my dad's little red Nissan truck, parked outside my new partner's house. It was early in the relationship. I had just come out of a 2-year period of celibacy, air quotes, trying to find myself after a difficult breakup. At first, in this budding relationship, I was genuinely curious and open. But after leaning in for a short time, my body started sending quiet signals through my heart and my gut. Something didn't feel right. I spent the entire day listening, examining my thoughts, tuning into the subtle cues in my body. And when I decided I was going to be honest, when I decided I was going to share that friendship, not a romantic relationship, felt like the most aligned path, I actually felt relief. I remember thinking, this feels right. My body softened. I felt spacious, liberated. I even told my dad that day, I feel really good about the decisions I'm making, without telling him what the decision was. But when I sat in that truck and began to share my feelings, everything changed. The The person I was dating started to cry. And in that moment, I couldn't tolerate the sensations in my body, the disappointment, the rejection, the pain I saw in her face. So I backpedaled. I said, "It's okay. It'll be okay." And before I knew it, I had agreed to stay in a relationship my body had already told me wasn't right. The contrast was immediate. Earlier that day, my body felt open and clear. Now it was tight, braced, holding its breath. In hindsight, that's when I started to understand something important. This was not kindness. This was survival. This was fawning. Because underneath that yes was fear. Fear I was making a mistake. Fear I'd be seen as selfish. Fear I'd hurt someone. Fear that if I did not show up emotionally, relationally, and eventually even financially, she would suffer. My nervous system wasn't afraid of disappointment. It was actually afraid of being a bad person. And my body was communicating the whole time. Tight chest, clenched jaw, braced shoulders, shallow breath. So shallow, I could barely tell if I was breathing at all. Back then, I was always waiting for an emergency, for someone to need me. And over time, that took a real toll. My self-esteem suffered. I stopped trusting my own desires. I stopped believing that relationships could actually fit. I believed I had to contort myself to be chosen. Here's the contradiction that took me the longest to see. Codependency thinks it's being nice, but it can actually be quite cruel to withhold the truth of how you feel in order to avoid someone else's discomfort. And that causes real damage over time. Kindness feels expansive and warm in the body. Lying to myself to feel needed and to avoid someone else's hurt felt draining, constraining, like self-betrayal. And if you've ever people pleased before, you might recognize it in the quiet tightening of your body, the small intuitive whispers, the bracing that happens before you even realize that you're doing it. In my family, love was expressed through bending over backwards, helping, sacrificing, being strong. But there wasn't great communication. There was a lot of unspoken expectation. I do this for you, and you should know what I need in return. I give you so much, so you should understand what I need from you. And if someone didn't bend over backwards, there were guilt trips, emotional pressure, a subtle message. You're responsible for how I feel. Now layer that with what many of us absorbed from media. So many love stories teach us, without ever saying it out loud, that self-sacrifice equals love. I suffer for you because I love you. I abandon myself for you because that proves devotion. That message runs deep in our culture. And for many of us, it fused with our survival wiring because we all want to be loved. In this episode, I'm defining codependency as needing external validation in order to feel safe and showing up inauthentically to get it. When survival is running the show, all authenticity gets sacrificed. Needs, boundaries, desire, truth, everything. Because the nervous system believes if I'm authentic to myself in this moment, I might lose connection. And to a survival-oriented body, loss of connection feels like danger because especially in our primitive years, we were more likely to survive in numbers. For me, codependency showed up early in life. It looked like anxiety, low self-esteem, insecurity. It looked like not being able to make decisions without approval. It looked like being afraid to be my own person in fear of what others might think of me. And contrary to what I believed when I was young, codependency isn't just about romantic relationships. It shows up in family, in work, in money, in leadership, in activism, in caretaking. Anywhere you need someone else to be okay for you to feel safe. Many people don't realize that people pleasing is actually fawn in the fight, flight, fawn, freeze sequence. In my body, fawning felt like tight muscles, quick heartbeat, knots in my stomach at the fear of being left or considered wrong, anxious breathing paired with an urge to over explain or justify instead of just saying yes or no. Fawning can show up disguised as showing up for others, but is often imbalance helping, in overgiving, a resentful giving. And underneath that urge to help, to rescue, loneliness, powerlessness, fear. Fawning distracts the nervous system from circumstances and emotion it perceives as dangerous. It's self-preservation. But here's the cost of fawning long term. You lose the ability to self-soothe. You lose access to cultivate true self-esteem. You keep replaying unconscious root patterns. Day to day, that can look like anxiety spirals, overthinking, needing reassurance, or feeling unable to trust your own decisions. When I was in survival mode, my body was tense and disconnected. My breath was shallow, my chest was tight. When coherence entered the picture, something shifted. My body softened, and I began to feel safe inside myself. I could see a bigger picture. I felt reconnected to hope and faith. I could make coherent choices authentic to my needs instead of reacting in default and doing what I thought other people wanted me to do. That's the difference. Here's the lie codependency teaches us about being a good person. If I don't sacrifice myself, then I'm not a good person. I'm worthless. Many of us absorb this from family systems, culture, and sometimes religion, not as an explicit teaching, but as a felt message. Suffering equals virtue. Self-abandonment equals love. That belief keeps survival mode locked in place. When survival is running the show, reacting sounds like, I have to. They'll be mad. I don't have a choice. They're making me. Responding from coherence sounds different. I hear you. I believe in you. This is how I can help. This is how I can't help. This matters beyond personal relationships because fawning shows up in allyship and trying to be a quote, good person. Peer policing is rampant. We tell each other what we should be doing because we're trying to feel collectively safer. But showing up for others from survival creates more of the same energy that caused the problem. Helping from coherence creates something new. When allyship comes from internal safety instead of fear and guilt, we access solutions we've never thought of, and we actually have the energy to carry them out. Codependency is a survival strategy, and survival strategies are incredibly useful in moments of danger, but living in them all of the time creates entropy from within. Recognizing survival mode is the beginning of choice. There are tools and exercises that interrupt survival patterns by creating coherence in your body. Coherence is what gives you your power back. So if you notice yourself fawning going forward, I invite you to refrain from judging yourself and instead become curious. When do you say yes when you mean no? When do you feel the urge to fawn, and why? That noticing alone creates agency. It gives you choice. Something else I want to name here. People often think that if they stop fawning, they'll stop being helpful. But what I've seen again and again is the opposite. Most codependent people have genuinely good intentions. They want to be helpful. But fawning actually gets in the way of sustainable help. When people are in coherence, they become more helpful, not less, because they're acting from clarity, internal safety, and sufficiency instead of fear. This is true in relationships, it's true in leadership, and it's especially true in allyship. The most helpful allies are coherent, and coherence doesn't require a lot of time. Even one long, slow, deep breath can be enough to interrupt the cycle, shifting from reacting in fight or flight to responding in coherence. That single breath can create just enough space to choose thoughts that bring you back into coherence instead of deeper into survival. But coherent allyship requires commitment and consistency to that deep breath every time you become aware that you're in survival mode without needing to be. This is where practices like CBT and nervous system regulation meet. Nervous system regulation gives you access to choice, including choice around your thoughts. Alongside coherence and nervous system regulation, the other leg of my coaching work is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT, as I understand it, is a psychological and methodical way to understand how thoughts shape reality. It helps us see how our thoughts influence how we feel, how we act, and what we create. CBT is not about forcing people to think positively. It's about being able to observe your thoughts and choose what you want to think. Before I understood coherence, I knew the idea that thoughts create reality, but I tried to think differently while my body was in survival mode. The thoughts driving fight, flight, fawn, and freeze felt etched into my consciousness. So it took so much energy to try to choose a better feeling thought while my system was in chaos. When you're in coherence, you can think about what you're thinking about, and that awareness gives you agency. Coherence creates the ground. CBT helps you work with what's growing there. We'll go much deeper into CBT in later episodes. If anything in this episode resonated with you, let that be enough for now. You don't need to figure everything out right now. Awareness is already movement. This work isn't about becoming a better or a perfect person. It's about becoming more aware and giving yourself permission to choose what's authentically right for you. Because when you do, everyone wins. There's a fear that comes up for a lot of people when we talk about boundaries, codependency, and coherence. The fear is that if you say no, if you stop fawning, if you choose yourself, you'll become selfish. That's not what happens. Coherence does not create selfish people. It creates resourced people. And resourced people have more capacity to care, more clarity about how to help, and more energy to show up in ways that actually make a difference. Coherent allies don't stop caring about others. They stop abandoning themselves in the process. And to the part of you that learned to survive by being good, you're not in trouble for saying no. You're not wrong for having boundaries or choosing yourself. As this episode comes to a close, see if you can feel your body for a moment. Feel your breath. Feel the ground beneath you. Coherence is possible. In the next episode, we'll keep building from here. Talk to you soon. If your body is ready for more support coming out of survival mode, I offer a 4-week Stop, Drop, Create Coherence video series, a self-led container of evidence-based coherence practices designed to help you come out of survival mode and build a new baseline of regulation and capacity. You can find it at shamantaima.com under the Stop, Drop, Create Coherence tab. That's SHAMANTAIMA.com under the Stop, Drop, Create Coherence tab.